right, week 4. Welcome back. Hey, this is Mr. Watlington, your instructor, facilitator, whatever you would like to call me. What are we doing in week 4? Let's talk about cybersecurity awareness, governance, and policies. And really, we're going to get into access and access controls this week as well. Should be a fun week, especially, and it builds on week 3 also. All right, so let's take a look at module 4. And again, it just continues to build. Like I said, we're going to look at the focus on some of the things we call user roles, user accesses, awareness training, governance, and policy, things of that nature. Learning objectives. Like I say, you're going to determine some of the security training strategies. How do you build a security aware culture within your organization? And it really comes down to one thing: training. Well, it comes down to 2 things. One is training. 2 is training. Number one is buy-in. And what I mean by buy-in, if without leadership buy-in, you can have the best training program, you can have the best security program, you can have all the best of these things that you're trying to implement, but without leadership buy-in, all of these things will never really be as robust or as effective as they need to be with maintaining a security posture within your organization. We're going to look at some of the RBAC, role-based access controls, and I'm going to talk about some of the other access control models as well, because it helps to understand RBAC a little better when you can understand access control holistically. And I think, yes, you will. You're going to develop a security matrix. And this security matrix is a very important thing. Like I say, yes, I use it day to day within our organization of understanding who has access as to what and why. Reading. Like I say, you're going to read chapter 3, 5, chapter 6, chapter 8. Yeah, you're just going to there are some areas in all those. Gets into threats to access controls, types of access controls, and things of that nature. All right, let's talk about security awareness and really talk about security awareness training. What is the purpose? Here again, it's all about risk and risk mitigation. Everything we do from a cybersecurity perspective, we're trying to protect critical information. How? By reducing risk, mitigating risk. And I have to throw this formula up here, this sentence, because it's core to everything that we do in cybersecurity, okay? Risk, the likelihood of a threat exploiting a vulnerability, and the biggies right here, and the corresponding business impact. Doing security just for the sake of security is money that's not well spent. But doing security for the sake of reducing risk that would impact the business, that's money well spent. So when you start to think about security training, many times we just want to jump right into the big topics. No, understanding and helping when you talk about building a culture, is to help people in your organization understand what the threats, the vulnerabilities, and talking about threats. So you always want to spend a little time talking about what's the threats in your organization. Now, these can be multiple types of threats. You can have malicious threats, negligent threats, you got accidental threats. And I will tell you, in many organizations, we are our own worst enemies. And what do I mean by that? Accidental and negligent threats. Where people who are untrained, aren't properly trained, or you have unclear policies, processes, and procedures that makes it very difficult for people to do that job, and mistakes are made, or people look for a workaround, because most people want to get the job done. And if they're being hindered, by networks that are not working properly, or security requirements that are too stringent, they're going to find workarounds. And then that's when you're going to have accidents and negligence. And you may say, too stringent? Of course. Let's say that I require you, I'm the security manager, the CSO for this organization, and I want everybody to have a 64-bit password. Yeah, 64, and I'm going to reset that password every 15 days. Yes. Oh, my God. Think about that. If you had to have a 64 character length password reset every 15 days. So what are you going to do? You're going to write the password down, which is now you've just circumvented the security that I've tried to put in place because it's too stringent. And that's what everyone in your organization. So you want to understand insider threats, what cyber threats are critical to the business that you're doing. Talking about threats that, that's happening that may not impact the business is not that important, because people want to know, once with training, they want to get in, get it done, and get out. So when you take that, now let's talk about the vulnerabilities that you have. Untrained workforce. Like I said, we talk about the vague policies, unsecure information systems, systems that aren't properly patched. You don't have antivirus running. These are vulnerabilities. And when threats meets vulnerabilities or exports vulnerabilities, that's when you have the likelihood of some type of risk. But again, it has to come down to What is the impact? Impact to profit and loss, impact to trust, integrity, honors, all these reputation. Really comes down to reputation. For many businesses, they can outlive, a technical glitch. Many times what they can't outlive is a hit to the reputation of the organization. So that's why this is the why. This is why all that we do is important, because we want to maintain that the company that we're helping to protect has a reputable stance within the business community. Now, what are some topics that you would probably want to cover? Like I said, when you think about security awareness training from a topic perspective, I always like to start here at the top, with policies, procedures, what does the insider threat look like, the staff, and how do you report it? And really, this is very important, because not knowing, if your workforce doesn't know who your security teams are, what the policies are, what leadership expectations are, makes it very difficult. Then you would really want to start talking about account management. How, you got a new person come in, what's the first thing they want to get? Once they're in docked, they need to get an account. They need to get on the network. So how are those accounts done? What training requirements is required to get that account? What signatures? Who is responsible for authorizing and approving that account? Now, I will tell you, many times, typically this happens in organizations. All of that falls on the IT guys, which is many times the wrong person or the wrong entity, organization to do that. Your IT department should not be the one approving accounts. They should be the one that are provisioning or creating an account once it's been approved by leadership. Once it's been approved by the information owner or the information system owner, then it goes over. So you want to ensure that you're trained, hey, listen, we have an account approval process, because that way we know what type of account you need and how you should be authenticated, on that account. Also want to look at physical security. It's always good to have that as part of your training. How do you enter the building? What type of entry devices? Do you have to swipe to get in? Tailgating. Do you have a tailgating policy? Can you swipe once and let 15 other people come in behind you? So just understand the physical environment is very important. Any kind of restrictions that you've got. Is there a company warning banner? Warning banner, I know in the government, in the Department of Defense, if you log on to our systems, you're going to see a DoD warning banner that says you are now, entering a government network, and you're responsible, and you are subject to search, seizure, monitoring, and all these other things. Be sure to highlight the policies on personal electronic devices. BYOD, can they bring their own devices? If so, what's the policy for that? Email and collaboration services, that should be a part of your training, as well as a big one, laptop procedures, whether company laptops for travel, especially if you're going overseas. What is the process and what's the policy for traveling with laptops? And a big one now is work from home. If you are teleworking, working from home, what are the security process associated with that? Another area that you always want to hit on is incident response, because this way, when you do have data spills and you do have incidents that happen, that everyone understands the reporting procedures. How to recognize an incident, how to report that incident. So these are just some topics, that just to get you started on how to build a security awareness and training program. Now, I know in this class it's all about CIA, right? CIA, every week. We're talking confidentiality, integrity, availability. I'm not going to beat you up with that anymore. But however, what I'm really going to introduce here is what I call our information access model, okay? Because at the end of the day, security, what are we doing? What are we doing? We are controlling access. We're trying to manage access. Access of an object, a subject, trying to get to some type of information object. That's pretty much the core of what we do. So understanding this information access model, to me, is just as important, sit side by side with understanding the CIA triad, because they go hand in hand. Confidentiality is lost, integrity is lost, availability many times is lost. Why? Because someone had gotten access to information that they should not have gotten access to. So when we think about this model, it starts with what? Identification. This is where you provide proof of who you say you are, okay? And then after that, authentication. Now you provided proof. Now you want to confirm the identity. I just don't trust you, just because you say you are who you are. Now authorization. Now once I've identified you, authenticated you, now I'm going to give you authorization to go and to get to whatever privileges and get to the information that you need to get to. And once that's done, Now I'm going to control your access, even though you may be authorized, and I'm going to control your access. And the last part of that is auditing this. Now I'm going to track and record where you've been. Now I like to use an analogy. You know, gosh, I think by now you guys know I love analogies. I love analogies. So in this analogy, right, I just came to your house at 10:45 in the evening. Now, let's make it 11 o'clock in the evening. By then you may have gone to bed. That's what I'm hoping. You've seen me on videos and stuff, but you don't know me. You don't like know me, but you've seen me a couple times. So knock on the door, or ring the bell, all right? And you look at your Ring camera and say, oh, I don't know who that guy is at my door at almost midnight. So you're going to probably want some what? Identification. I tell you, hey, yes, this is Mr. Wallington, you know, your instructor for CYB200. I'm outside your door. I just identified myself. Are you going to open that door? No, probably not. Why? Because you want to authenticate that identification. You want to authenticate that. You know, you got to show me something. Show me, because I've seen you on video, but I don't really know you that well. All right, so I open my wallet, pull out my driver's license that the DMV, you remember the DMV, right? You remember the DMV, yeah. That the DMV have issued me, because now you look at that and go, okay, look at the picture, look at me, look at the picture, look at me. And yeah, you've just authenticated my identity. Okay, that same thing happens on the network every day. When you type in your username, you know, you've identified yourself to the network, to the network, to Active Directory, to you know, the systems that run in the background that says, yeah, I recognize that username. But if you think about it, you can't just log on to most networks with just a username. So what do you have to add? A PIN, a password, some type of authenticator. Okay, and what does that authenticator do? It verifies your identity. So now that you've done that, boom, you're in. So now let's look at authorization. So now you authenticated my identity and you let me in the door. Okay, you're still a little leery. Like, why are you at my door at, you know, almost midnight? But you let me in, and I'm standing there in the entryway of your home. And then you say, well, come on, you can come in and come into the den and sit down. So what have you just done? You've just authorized me to go to a certain or particular place within your home. All right. Now that I'm in the den, and yeah, you have a nice den too. I want to let you know that, yeah, your den looks pretty good. I'd probably move the chair on the other side and put the plants here. No, just kidding. So I'm in your den, and you got this really nice 85-inch, you know, TV on the wall, and a really nice Bose system that I'm like, oh man, that's sweet. And I go to grab the remote for that, and you look at me like, dude, what are you doing? Why? Even though I'm in the den, I don't have access. So you control what I have access, even though I'm authorized. I've been identified, I've been authenticated, I've been authorized to come into that den, but you still provide access control. Same thing happens on your network. Here's what I mean. So you logged in, I mean, you put in your username and a password, or you had a CAC you've put in and you entered your PIN. But either way, you got identified and you authenticated. Now, what is the network going to do? It recognizes who you are on the network. And it says, okay, based on who you are, you're authorized to go to SharePoint, you're authorized to go to email, and you're authorized to go to these specific folders. That's what you're authorized to go to. However, let's say if you go to a SharePoint folder, do you have access to every file that's in that folder? No, probably not. Because now you're not access controlled, because some of those files may be discretionary access control to where the information owner of that file says, no, you're not authorized to get there. So you see what happens? These steps happen just like you do in your home, the same way that it happens on any network. You're identified, authenticated, authorized, access control, and the last thing, audit. Yes. So I'm in your den. I've been, you know, rummaging through the little not nightstand, but coffee table, and you got magazines and other stuff out there. Okay. But then when I finish and I'm ready to go, what are you probably going to do? You're going to walk in the den and look around. Okay, does everything look like it was, you know, before he came? Yeah. You're going to do a quick audit. You're going to check outside to be sure that I left. You audit it. Well, that's what happens on our networks. Yes. Even though we did all this, now I want to have a record to ensure that you went only where you were authorized to go. And you didn't try to overtly go to places that you were not authorized to go. That is your information access model, you know. If you live in the Cisco world, you may hear it called AAA. Okay, they call it AAA, authentication, authorization, access control. I like adding the I to it, identification, because that's where it starts. So, like your switches and routers and all those things, yeah, they have what they call AAA, how they authenticate, authorize, and control access on that switch. But to me, it all starts with identification, how to identify. All right, not only, now that we understand, access, we also want to understand user roles, because this is what really, at the end of the day, help you establish any type of access control is based on policies for users. To start with, a general user. That's pretty much anybody on your network that's able to input, modify, or extract information from that information system. You're usually going to have some type of general user training, right? Now, also on this network, you have some of those general users who are privileged users, and they are able to do security relevant types of actions, like system administrators or auditors, security analysts, your network administrators. They have elevated privileges, and what should happen is that they should have elevated training. There should be additional training because that's an additional role that they have. And in addition to roles, you also need to have a way of managing user access. How are people authorized to get the information that they need to know and are not authorized to get the information that they do not have a need to know? Well, that's what your user access controls do. So general users, priv users, and then determining user access. So when we think about access control, we got to think about it from multiple perspectives. But at the end of the day, like we talked about before, what we're talking about is controlling a subject's access to an object. How can people get to information? And so a subject could be, or entity, sometimes you hear it called an entity, could be a person, it could be another computer or a database or information system that's acting on behalf of another entity. Like say you have a script running. That script every night goes out and looks for information. Well, you got to have access control on those types of things as well. And an object is any type of information object. Let's say a tuple or a cell within a spreadsheet that has your name, first name, last name, social security number, telephone number, address, all of those type things. Those are objects. And entities, what do we like to do? We want to get to objects. And what do we do in security? We kind of stand right here and say, okay, we're going to adjudicate and control how an entity or subject is able to get to an object. So when we look at access control, you got to think about it from multiple facets. You got personnel access control. What individuals are authorized to get onto your network. You got end user device control. Okay, not only do I want to know how the users, but what devices. Is it our laptops, our personal electronic devices, desktop, tablets? How do we control who is able to plug in a device into our network, either physically with the Ethernet port or wirelessly across our enterprise domain? So you're providing access control for devices, access controls for the people, individuals, as well as access control to the information system in the back end itself, and physical. Don't forget physical. That's a huge part of it because, again, if someone can physically walk into a data center, then they've got access to what? Your information systems. So controlling physical access is also just as important. Now, how do we do this? We use different access control methods. These are three popular ones. There are other access control methods, but these are the three I'm going to kind of touch on today. MAC, mandatory access control, DAC, discretionary access control, and RBAC, which is role-based access control. Role-based is the one that, in this class, that's where they focus on. But to me, it makes sense to talk about all three so that it brings a little clarity to DAC. Now, what is MAC? MAC, really, you see this in the military a lot. This is where mandatory access control is called, rings of access configured for security for officers. It's called security labels, i.e. security clearances. Unclassified, confidential, secret, top secret. So the reason it's called mandatory is that if I need to see top secret information, I have to have a top secret clearance. If I need to see secret information, I have to have a secret clearance. Okay? And it's part of this model, the Bell LaPadula model, we call no read up, no write down. Okay? I cannot arbitrarily take unclassified information and write it up. Okay? And read it up. Let's say if I have a confidential, a secret clearance, I can't read top secret information. And no one can give me that unless I've gotten a top secret clearance. No read up. and what's called no write down, me as an individual, unless I'm a approval authority, can arbitrarily say, hey, this is top secret. I'm going to share it with my counterparts who have just a secret clearance. No, cannot do that. So it has to match the labels. For someone to see top secret, they have to have a top secret clearance. Okay? For someone to see secret, they have to have at least a secret clearance. Now, if I have a top secret clearance, yeah, I can read down. I can read secret if I have a top secret clearance. I can't read up. I can read down. If I have so that's MAC, mandatory access control. The label has to match the data. The security label has to match the clearance. All right, let's take a look at discretionary access control. That's access given at the discretion of the data or the information owner. Okay, you maybe have opened up Windows or and you've seen this thing that looks like a table. What this is that if let's say I create a folder myself, I'm the owner of that folder. I put information in that folder. Now, I, as the information owner, am able to give access to anyone else that I want to, and I can give them to show what type of access. I can give them full control. I can give them read, write only. I can give them read only, write only. So I am able to do that myself because I'm the information owner. Now, I will tell you, in a lot of networks, this is even though it's called discretionary, it's still controlled pretty tightly. Okay, meaning that many times the systems aren't set up to where you can actually do that without having IT or having someone else to facilitate that. So it's the operating system itself. I think we talked about operating systems early on. Well, it's the kernel in the operating system that controls this ability to do discretionary access control. All right, then we got role-based. Like I say, and this is, I think, in our class what we're talking about. This is role-based access control, RBAC. It's based on your role, okay? Use a set of controls to determine how many subjects and objects can interact. It doesn't give, now in RBAC, you're not giving rights to an individual. Instead, what you're doing, you're creating, you're giving rights to a role. Depending on the role, that's what rights you have. And how does this kind of work? And, so if we kind of look over here, I've got users over here. I've got 4 users down the side, and each one have a different role. Role 1, role 2, and role 3. These 2 are in role 1, and they're given permissions, here to these objects. If you're in role 2, they may have permissions, to multiple objects. And role 3, again, could have different accesses, just based on the role, not the individual. So what that means is, let's say that, and this really starts with your, security. Where security many times has to start. If you're trying to implement role-based access control with your HR. It has to start at the hiring. It has to start really before hiring, when you're writing job descriptions. When you're writing job descriptions for a role, that's really where this starts at. So let's say that, because now, if I understand, me as a security person, I understand the role that you're hiring for. Let's say that this is a software engineer. Role, not the person, the role. And as a software engineer, that role will require access to email. They're going to require access to SharePoint folders. They're going to have access to the DevSecOps Agile environment. So now I write that's part of the job description. I need a software engineer who can develop in a DevSecOps environment and understand Agile and all these other things. I hire that individual though. Now I hire Susie. She's the software developer that comes in. I'm not that concerned about Susie. I just want to know what role. And they tell me, oh, she's a software developer. Okay. Well, then I will put her in a group. And this is all done here again now, kind of with Active Directory and some other tools. Once she goes into that group, she's automatically assigned the accesses that she needs because she's in that role. And so then, like I say, Active Directory, sitting on the main controller, will do the work needed to, based on the security group that individuals put in. So that's how we use role-based access control to allow individuals, based on their role, to get access. I like RBAC because the simple reason is that you build your security architecture one time, then you're just putting individuals in, and the operating systems, they will do the work because you've already established your groups and you've already established all those. You just plug in individual. And if a person leaves a role, it makes it easy because they're no longer in that role, so they instantly lose access to whatever they were assigned. So role-based access control. Now, there is work getting it set up initially because you have to really understand what people do in your organization. And this really requires leadership buy-in. It requires middle and really senior leadership many times will buy into this. It's mid-level managers because they're the ones who have to really do the work to be able to explain what they want that individual to do and what that role is. And determining those roles is the hard part of RBAC. If you once get it set up, then it's just maintenance of maintaining roles. And again, when new people come in, put them into the right place. Okay, we're going to go a little geeky, just a little geeky on you right here. All right. Let's talk about this thing called Kerberos. Like I say, Kerberos is an authentication system that it's really the default system that's used for Windows, Linux. A lot of them use Kerberos to be able to control authentication. This is kind of the how. We've talked a lot about the why. This is kind of how it works in the background. And I'm skipping a lot of parts here. So this is not really 100% geek nerdy. So let's say. Let's go this way. We're going to talk about the components. Actually, you got a key distribution center, an authentication server, a ticket granting service, client and server. But let me give you an analogy first, because I compare this to going to an amusement park. Okay, you go to an amusement park, and when you go through the main entrance first, right through the turnstiles. Let's say they give you a wristband. You pay your $75, and to get in, they give you a wristband. Well, you've just been given a ticket, right? That you are authorized to go to the park. You can walk around inside of the park. Now, but if you want to ride a ride, you need to get another ticket, the ticket for that particular ride, which is different than the wristband you have, unless you pay for the deluxe package, which is $250 that you can get a special wristband and you can ride anything in the park. But in this case, you didn't. You were cheap, because you want to save money, and you got the $75 package. You got the wristband, you're in the park, you're walking around, you want to go ride, the roller coaster, and you walk up, and what do they ask for? Where's your ticket? Oh, I don't have one. Okay, go over there and get a ticket. Now, when you get the ticket and come back, they see your wristband. Yes, you're authorized to be in the park, and now you've been granted a ticket. Because when you went to get that ticket, the first thing the lady at the little booth asked is, can I see your wristband? And you show her the wristband. Yes. Okay. Now, if you give me another $25, I'll give you a ticket. And you're thinking, wow, it would have been better if I just bought the deluxe package, because by the time I finish riding, I would have spent more anyway. But anyway, that's another subject. So now you've got a ticket, and you still got your wristband. So now you walk up, and you can ride the roller coaster. Very similar. This is how Kerberos works. So let's say that you are a client, right, and you want to get to this server. That's what you want to do. This is your roller coaster. Well, the first thing that has to happen, right, is you have to get what they call a TGT, a ticket granting ticket, which is like that wristband. Okay, that is your authentication that yes, you are who you say you are, and that is provided up here by the Kerberos Key Distribution Center, the KDC, and that's the service that yes, this individual is authorized. This individual is authorized. He's authorized to come into the park, right? So now you say, oh, thank you, I'm authorized on the network. Now I want to get to the SharePoint server so I can do some work. So when you try to log on to SharePoint, you know what happens? Well, your system now has to go up and ask for a ticket for SharePoint. This happens in the background. You never see this happening, but this is what's running into the background. It's a certificate that says it. And before it gives you a ticket, you know what it does? It goes over here and talks to the authentication server. Hey, is this person authorized? And the authentication server says, yeah, they're authorized. Okay, well, I'll give them a ticket to SharePoint. And then you get the ticket to SharePoint, and now you're able to get to the server. That's what happens every time you try to get to a service on your network if they're running Kerberos as the authentication technology in the background. Again, if you ever hear Kerberos again, if you're taking a certification exam, think amusement park. Okay, 2 tickets. I got a wristband that I paid $75 for to get me into the park, but because I was a cheap knucklehead and I didn't listen to my spouse, because they told me up front to get the $175 package, but no, I wanted to save $100, I thought. But then I walk up to the to the ride, the roller coaster, and they say, nope, you gotta go get a ticket. Well, I go over to the little booth, stand in line for another 35 minutes, get up there, and she says, "Can I see your wristband?" Yes. So she is the authentication server. And she says, "Okay, you're authenticated. Great. Now, boom, here is your ticket to ride the roller coaster. Up after you give me another $25. And you take that ticket over to the roller coaster guy, well, and you hand it to them, and they let you get on the ride. They let you get to the service that you wanted to get to. All the mystery taken out of Kerberos. I hope. Yeah, it was. Okay, so let's wrap this up. So this week, you got a role-based access control activity. And please, again, I know every week I say this, use the rubric, follow the rubric and use the templates that's provided. Please, please. It makes it easy for you, makes it easy for me, and we both are happy. You passed the course, I finished teaching the course, and you go on to your next CYB class. Isn't it great? It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Yes, it is a beautiful thing. So what do we want to do? You're going to do this week, role-based access control metrics. You're going to populate a role-based RBAC metrics that's based on your Module 4 activity template that you're going to use. And as you're doing, and what you're going to, basically, it's, a metric. You got people, here's their roles, and what you're going to fill in, should they be authorized to view, create, modify, delete, or none of the above. You're just going to fill that in. And now, there's some things you want to ask as you go through this. What changes, for instance, could be made to the user role through the implementation of least privilege to better support their security design model? What's the importance of the tool to you as a security analyst in managing and protecting the environment? Providing an example. Why is this metrics important? Okay, this RBAC metric. All right, guys, covered a lot this week. Well, we've got a lot to cover in week 4. Have any questions? As I always say, reach out, and hit me up, on email, and I will get back with you. Have any questions? I know a lot of reading, a lot of things going on every week. Just stay on top of it. Don't want to get behind. With that said, if you are behind, please take the opportunity to go back and do any assignments that you haven't done. Yes, I'll grade them. You get credit for it. I'll deduct some points for some late points, but that's better than getting no points at all. All right, have a great week. See you next time.